Hi all. Today let's see how we can build a Singlespa application which consists of one Angular microfrontend and one React microfrontend, and then deploy that application into the Azure by making use of Azure DevOps Pipelines. The application which we are going to use today is this application. So the application is mainly driven through Singlespa. Initially, it loads a React application, which is what we are seeing here. And when we click on this link, an Angular microfrontend is loaded. So let's see what are the steps needed to build the different components of this micro frontend and deploy it into Azure. So first, let us create the pipelines for the same. This is the structure of our application. We have a Singlespa root configuration, and we have the React application within the React app folder and the Angular application within the Angular app folder. So now let's get started. So first, let us create the Azure pipeline YAML file for our Angular application. So within the Angular app folder, I created a YAML file called Azure pipelines.yaml. So this YAML file will consist of the steps which are needed for building and deploying our Angular microfrontend. So let's get started. So the first step is the trigger. So trigger mainly means that whenever this trigger happens or any changes happen to the triggers which we have specified here, our pipeline should be started. So in this scenario, what we have given is, in case the branches which we given here, that is the main branch, if any check-in happens to the main branch and the path of that particular check-in, it includes the folder Angular app. So since we are making use of a monorepo and consists of all the Singlespa, React as well as Angular, we can filter out the particular Angular portions, since that will occur only within the Angular app folder. So for that, we make use of the paths, and inside the paths we include the Angular app. So any change that happens within this folder, our pipeline will be triggered. Any change happens outside this folder, it won't be triggered. So once we define the trigger, here I am making use of multi-stage YAML file. So our initial stage is build. So here we will be building our Angular micro frontend. So for that, we are defining the agent pool, and we are making use of the virtual machine image Windows. So it will be making use of a Windows machine to run our pipeline. And here we are defining the jobs. So the job is build. Here we are giving the name of the job as Angular app build, so that it will be displayed in the pipeline. So initially we are cleaning up the workspace so that all the temporary files are removed. And after that, we are installing the Node.js. So we are specifying the version, that is 16.x. And once we have done that, we do an npm install. And here, since our application is a monorepo, so what we are doing is, we need to specify the working directory so that where our package.json will be present. So here we are targeting the Angular application, so we need to provide the path of this package.json. So that we have given here, that is the system default working directory. This is an internal variable, predefined variable, and within that path we target the Angular application, that is this folder. So we are specifying the working directory, and once we complete the npm install, we will be making use of the npm task to run a custom command, that is the command which is available within this package.json. So here we are specifying that we need to run build Singlespa Angular app. So that is this command, which will in effect build our Angular micro frontend in the production mode. So once we execute that command, again here we need to specify the working directory, which is same as the previous step. Once we build our application, a dist folder will be created within our Angular application folder. The next step what we are doing is we have created a script, and we will first create a dist folder within our artifact staging directory. And once we create that, we copy the contents of our local dist folder, that is within the Angular application, to within the artifact staging directory dist folder. So once we have done that, we publish the build artifacts so that the output of our build will be available to the next stage, that is the deploy stage. The second stage within our YAML file is the deploy stage, and we are specifying that it depends on the previous stage, that is the build, and it has to be successful. So in case the build fails, this stage will not be executed. And here we are defining two variable groups. So I have created two variable groups within our Azure DevOps. So here within the library section, I have given the variable group dev, which consists of the subscription, that is the service connection, which is used to connect from the Azure DevOps to our Azure portal, and also the storage account where we will be deploying our applications. For that, we have the VGRP dev library, and the other one is a secret dev, which consists of the details of our subscription, like the here we are making use of our account key. So that particular is a sensitive information. So that part we are storing within the Azure Key Vault. So for that, we make use of the secret dev library. So once we have done that, again, we tell that our agent pool should make use of the Windows image. And our first step is we are going to run the Azure CLI, and here we need to provide our service connection detail. And here we are running a local or inline script, which is of type batch, since it is a Windows machine. So our Azure CLI, we are informing that we need to upload the output. So initially, we will be downloading our published artifact, and once it is downloaded, we will upload the contents of that artifact to this particular container. So here we need to create this container first within our Azure portal. So let's go here. So within our storage account, we have a section called containers. Here we can add a container. So the name I am giving it as Angular Micro App, and I am providing full access. I am creating the container, and now it's available. So we will be publishing our output from the Angular micro frontend to this particular container. And here we specify the storage account and the account key, and along with the source from which it needs to publish the content. So this is again the published artifact which we did in our earlier stage. So let's create a pipeline for our YAML file. So we click on create pipeline, select the Azure repository, and the repository which has our code is the Singlespa. So from here we can select the existing Azure Pipelines YAML file, and the branch, it is main, and the path from which we need to take it is the Angular app Azure Pipelines.yaml. So once we select that, we can click continue, and the YAML file which we created, it is getting selected here. So we can save this, and before running we can just rename our pipeline. So we can name it as Angular Micro Frontend Deploy. Save it. Also, we need to link the variable group so that our pipeline can run successfully. So here in the variables, we can link the variable group, and now we can save and queue our pipeline. So our pipeline has completed successfully. So if you see the pipeline, you can see the multiple stages that are available. That is the build and the deploy stage. And within the build stage, we have the Angular application build, that is the job, and within which we have each of the steps. So as we defined, initially the code is checked out. Once it is checked out, we install the Node.js, which we specified version. After that, we do an npm install. Then we build our Angular application and then copy the contents of our dist folder so that we can publish it as an artifact. So once it is published, if we go to our job, we will be able to see that within our published artifacts. So the dist folder along with the contents we can see here. Now, if we go to the build stage and after that to the deploy stage, you can see the deploy job, that is deploy to Azure. Here we are downloading the secret which are available in the Azure Key Vault. After that, we are downloading the build artifact which we published in the previous stage, and once we download that, we are publishing the contents to our Azure blob or the container, that is Angular micro. So now let's go to our blob and see, and here we can see that all the files which we published from our pipeline, it is available here. So next, let us go and create the pipeline for our React micro frontend. So now we come to our React app folder, which consists of our React micro frontend. And here again, we create the Azure pipelines.yaml file, and within which we will add the code which is almost similar to what we previously encountered. So here the difference is that we give the path as React app so that only whenever any change happens within our React app folder, we need to trigger this new pipeline. The remaining things are almost similar. We do an installation for the Node.js. Then we do an npm install, and here the working directory will be different. That is a React app. After that, we run this custom script that is defined within our package.json. So here we have the build webpack, which is mainly used for building our application in the production mode. So we give that custom command run build webpack, and again we specify the working directory as the React app. So once we have done that, again we create the dist folder within the artifact staging directory, and we copy the contents of our dist folder, that is within the React app /dist. We copy it over to our artifact staging directory. Once we do that, we will publish the artifact, and again in the next step we will be deploying our application after downloading the artifact, and here the container name is React micro app. So again I am going to create a new container. So I'll give the name as React micro app, and so our React micro app container is created, which is empty now. So now let's do one thing. We will check in our YAML file. So once our code is checked in, we can create another pipeline. So now we will be able to see our new YAML file within the React app. We can select that and we can save it. And we can also rename the pipeline. We can name it as React micro frontend deploy. So again, we need to attach the variables. So our pipeline has started running. So our React pipeline is also completed. So let's see whether our React application, that's the micro frontend, got deployed within the new container. So here you can see that our React app JS file is present within our container. So now if we go to our storage account, we have the Angular micro app, which is the Angular micro frontend and the React micro frontend as well. Now we need to deploy our main index.html, that is the Singlespa root config, which will be hosting both the Angular as well as the React micro frontends. So that particular index.html and all the related parts we will be uploading to this $web, which is the default container for any storage account. So what I have done here is I have created a static website which will be pointing to the $web so that we will be able to see that in real time. So here I am running that static website. So as of now, since we did not deploy anything in the $web, it will show a 404 that the content does not exist. Once we deploy our Singlespa root config, we will be able to see our application. So now let's make the changes to our index.ejs, that is the Singlespa root config. So here within our index.ejs, there is a line saying that whenever we do a production deployment, we need to enable this line. So it basically consists of a system.js import map, which is pointing to a import map.json. So what we need to do is that we need to create a file called import map.json in our root directory. So here I have created a new file, and the content of the file should be similar to what we have defined within our local system.js import map. So this import map will be used only when we run locally. So here I am copying the content of that JSON. And here you can see that we are referring to the local host for our root config as well as the Angular and the React application. So in the case of our root config, we can remove the URL since we are hosting our root application in the $web. The root config will be relative to that folder. So we need not specify any URL. But in the case of the Angular application and the React application, we need to provide the URL. So what we are going to do now is that I am going to create a CDN endpoint. So let's go to our storage account, and here we have an option called Azure CDN. So here we will be able to create new endpoints. So we need to create a CDN profile, and we need to select the pricing tier. We can select either of this. So I am going to select this, and we can provide a CDN endpoint. So since I have already created a CDN profile, it will be listed here, and the pricing is already included in this profile. Now, once we provide the CDN endpoint name, we will be able to create a CDN. So it will be basically pointing to our blob container, which we created here. Now, I have already created a CDN endpoint here. So now we can make use of this particular endpoint name instead of our local host. So we need to append our container name here. So one is the Angular micro app. So within that we have our main.js file. Similarly, we have the React micro app. So we can copy paste the same thing. So within that we will have our app React app.js. So once we have done this, What we can do is now we will create the YAML file for building and deploying our root config. For the CDN endpoint which we created, we also need to enable the course. So this can be done in the rules engine section. So here we need to add this configuration. That is, we need to allow the static website which we use to host our application, and that should be given in the access control allow origins, so that our static website will be able to access the contents from the CDN. So now I have created a new YAML file within our root folder itself, so that our package.json will be available in the same folder as our YAML file. So here within the YAML, again it is similar, but here the path will be pointing to the src folder as well as the import map.json. So if any change happens to either of these files, this pipeline will be triggered. So here again, the remaining things are almost similar. We do an npm install. Here we need not provide the working directory since we are running it from the root folder itself. So after that, we will be running this custom script, that is the build webpack, which will build our root config. So once we do that, again we publish the artifact from the dist folder, which will be present in the root directory itself, and the contents we will be publishing so that it will be available in the next stage. And here we will be deploying the output from the dist folder to this $web container so that it can be hosted as a website. So now let's create the pipeline. So again, creating the Singlespa. So this time, sorry, we did not check in the code. So let's try it one more time. So now you can see our third option, that is the root config pipeline. We can select that, save it. We can rename it as Singlespa app deploy. Now again we need to link the variables. So our pipeline has started. So our third pipeline has also completed successfully. And now if we go to our storage account, here we can see that our index.html, the import map along with the app root config has been deployed. So let's see refreshing our application. So now you can see that our React application has been loaded. And once we click on our link, immediately our Angular micro frontend is loaded as well. So if we check the network, you can see that our Angular micro frontend is getting taken from within our CDN. Similarly, our react.js file is also getting taken from the CDN itself. So hope you are able to get a good idea about how we can build and deploy a Singlespa micro frontend making use of Angular and React. See you soon. Thank you.